Hello, my name is Jessica Landon, and I am going to share my grandmother's banana cake recipe with you. When I was asked if I wanted to participate, it just so happened to be my grandmother's birthday, and I was racking my brain trying to figure out what recipe I wanted to share. And then people on Facebook started talking about my grandma's banana cake recipe, so I thought it would be a really great idea to share her recipe because it was a recipe that she is famous for. So to start any recipe that has to do with bananas, the first thing that you need to do is take some brown bananas, and I have had mine sitting in a brown paper bag for quite a few days because that is a tip. If you have some ripe bananas and you want to ripen them faster, just go ahead and put them in a brown paper bag, and that will help them ripen just a little bit faster. So I'm dumping my ripe bananas into a bowl here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera down so you can see what I'm doing. Then I'm just going to take a fork and mash them up. I'm sure that many of you have made banana bread before, so you are more than familiar with the concept of mashing bananas. So the first part of the recipe calls for a stick of margarine. I do not use margarine, I have butter, and margarine and butter are totally interchangeable, and I have had my stick of butter on the counter all day softening, because whenever you use a dairy product you always want to make sure that it is softened so that it will beat and blend well. And then I need a cup and a half of sugar. And I know that my sugar is almost out, so I'm opening up another container of sugar real quickly. I forgot to do this before the video started, so I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to use the little bit that I have left in here, which is conveniently a half a cup of sugar. And then I'm going to just use a half cup measure again. Do 1 and 2 more, so that way it's one less thing that I'm getting dirty right now. I'm gonna put that off to the side. And it also says I need to add the eggs and beat well. And my life hack for you when it comes to eggs is that I always crack my eggs and put them into a bowl before I add them to my recipe, because one time I had an egg that was a bad egg and I had cracked it right into the main recipe, so I ended up having to throw out the entire cake mix and start over, and I was trying to make a cake for my son's first birthday, so that was not a good thing. So I have cracked my second egg. I'm going to go ahead and add the eggs to my mixer. I'm going to turn it on lightly for just a second. And while that is mixing, what I'm going to do is mix out my dry ingredients. So I need 2 cups of cake flour, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of baking soda, and a half a teaspoon of salt. And I also need to sift those ingredients. So I always use this It's more like a strainer, but it's one less kitchen utensil that I have to have in my house. So before I start sifting, I'm going to check my mixture, and I just want to let it mix for another minute to get to the consistency that I want. So I'm going to use a half cup measurer because it's what fits in my cake flour box. So I have 2 scoops of, so that's 1 cup of flour. And I could tell that my mixture, my egg and butter mixture is good. And before I add anything else to my flour mixture, I'm going to add the teaspoon of baking soda and teaspoon of baking powder and half teaspoon of salt. So that way they'll sift in and get nice and mixed with the other ingredients as well. And then change over to this is a quarter. That was a half a teaspoon. So I need to do a little bit more of each one of those. My teaspoons that I normally use are actually in the dishwasher. So, and half a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna get some more cake flour, so another half a cup. So sifting in one of my favorite remedies of my grandma is just how she always had her kitchen open and welcomed everybody in and always had a great meal on the table. My grandma lived within walking distance of where I grew up, so I was always going down and trying to do something with her in the kitchen. And she did not have an air conditioner, so that was not always pleasant to do in the summertime. All right, so I have my mixture sifted. Okay, so I need to add my teaspoon of vanilla to the recipe. So I'm going to add my teaspoon of vanilla. Let that mix for just a second. I'm just going to stir this real quick to make sure that vanilla got all the way incorporated. And then it says to add, the next step is to add the dry ingredients, but I always like to add my dry ingredients in 2 batches, so I do half, and then I can stir it up and make sure that it all gets incorporated, so that way I don't have clumps of flour in my recipe. All right, so that's pretty well incorporated for the first set, but I'm gonna just mix down the sides real quick. And then over on this side, I am going to dump in the other half. of my flour mixture. And again, go quiet, soft, slow. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to measure my buttermilk. Give my buttermilk a good shake. I need 3/4 cup of buttermilk. And I also need 1 cup of the banana mixture from earlier. So I'm going to pour the bananas in, make sure I have 1 cup. All right. Push this all down so that way all of our ingredients are together. I'm going to scrape the side of the pan, and then I'm going to put in half of my buttermilk. Mix that up. Mix it, let it mix in. Scrape the sides down again. And this just helps make sure that all the ingredients get incorporated together. I'm gonna add in my bananas. And there's only a teeny tiny little bit banana left, so I'm just gonna scrape that in. And then while that's still going, I'm just going to go ahead and add in the last little bit of the buttermilk. Let that mix for just a second. And there you have my grandmother's banana cake mix, all mixed up. It's wonderful, it's delicious, and I don't even like cake. So I am not going to actually make a cake this time. I am going to do cupcakes because being in quarantine, I do not need to have an entire cake for my family. So I'm going to get a scoop out and go ahead and fill these up. So the scoop that I normally use, I let my son use to make cupcakes. I mean, large chocolate chip cookies earlier today. So just like if you were making any regular cupcakes, you want to fill this about 2/3 of the way full, and then you're going to bake them for about 30 minutes. Going to go ahead and fill this last cupcake up. And as I was filling the last one up, I got a little bit extra on the pan right here, as you can see. So I'm just going to take a paper towel and wipe that off real quick. And then what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm just going to tap, make sure that there's no air bubbles and that they're all mostly even. And we'll see you again in about 30 minutes. So the timer just went off on my cupcakes, so I'm going to pull them out of the oven. And because they're cupcakes, I only put them in for 25 minutes because I didn't want them to burn. But if it was a cake, I would be putting it in for definitely 30 minutes. So I'm gonna put in my cake tester real quick. And it comes out clean. So here are my grandma's banana cupcakes. I hope you enjoy Grandma Lena's banana cupcakes.